The first ayah looks simple enough, but when we compare it to the translations, you'll notice something. Some translations refer to Allah as God. This raises a pretty significant question, which is, can Allah really be translated as God? And after doing some digging, I found that Allah is better understood as the proper name for God. Aside from his descriptive names like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Allah is the most used word in the Quran, and it is the only name of Allah which refers to his essence, not his attributes. It is the proper name that God has given himself. So when Muslims refer to God amongst themselves especially, they should refer to God as Allah, even when they're speaking English. And another reason why God is not a good translation for Allah is because there is already an Arabic word which translates to God, which is ilah, from la ilaha illallah, best translated as there is no God but Allah. You can also say that there is no God but God as a translation of la ilaha illallah, but it's just not as clear as saying there is no God but Allah, because Allah does not correspond to an English word. It's a proper name again. We can understand this on a smaller scale with the example of people's names. A person's name is not translated according to the language. It stays the same regardless of the language being spoken. And I don't think there's harm in saying God instead of Allah when speaking to a non-Muslim audience. So I can't blame some of the translations for doing that. It just depends on who the audience is. And God is the closest approximation to Allah in the English language. It's not perfect, but it works. So let's stick with Allah in the first part of this ayah and move on to the second part of the ayah. In the second part of the ayah, again, we see that by far most of them are simply translating ahad as the one. But we see also another word, the only. It seems to me that the one and only is a good translation because it really emphasizes the uniqueness of Allah. In English, we use the one very casually. And if you imagine a 12-year-old trying to understand this ayah, trying to understand the word ahad as the one and only, it seems to drive the point home significantly better and emphasize the oneness in an important way. Okay, so the first ayah is now complete. Let's move on to the second.